On this episode, a 4-month structure build is complete and work begins on the signature scene of the Cumberland and Ohio Valley Railroad. Welcome back, everybody. It's been 4 months since my last vlog, and I've been very busy in that amount of time working on the signature structure of the layout. And I gave you a little bit of a preview of it at the end of the last vlog, but in this episode, I want to reveal to you the final trestle. It is absolutely a monster and was quite the challenge to build. It was, for me at times, very monotonous because you're basically building the same bent assembly over and over and over again, and things that you are very repetitious, I get bored with quite quickly. But I persevered and pushed through it, and this is the final result, and it was certainly worth all of the boredom that was involved during parts of it. But everything else you see around it, the hard shell cardboard and the fascia, those things really I've just built in the last week. So really the entire 4-month period was pretty much assembling the trestle. It's about 6 feet long. Of course, double track. It's about 20 inches tall at the deepest part, and has an unbelievable 12,000 plus Tichy nut bolt washer castings on this thing. That was probably the most tedious part of the entire thing, was cutting out from the sprue all of these little teeny tiny washers. But boy, they really add a lot of detail, especially when you get up close to it. The only thing left to do is just add the micro engineering bridge track, but I won't do that until all the scenery is finished, because right now the trestle can actually come out. It's just sitting. I'm going to show you in a second what I use to support it. But it really is the signature scene of the entire layout. Certainly the most imposing structure that I'll have on here. So to build this, I needed a couple of little jigs that I put together. So I'm going to pull those out real quick and show them to you, and we'll take a look at those. So to ensure that each of the bents was completely identical in size and in spacing, I had to make a jig to do those. So this is the jig that I created. Basically, I drew out the spacing of all of the timbers, and then from there, use little pieces of the same strip wood, little blocks, to create little placeholders so that when I did the X bracing and the cross pieces, everything was held in place exactly the same. So there's some horizontal lines on there, and that shows where the different size bents were cut off. But this was a real lifesaver. There would have been no way to build this as accurately as I did without this particular jig. But it worked quite well. The other issue was making sure that the track spacing was equal, and that was going to be critical to get the two ends to align with the existing flex track on this side over here and on this side where it goes into this tunnel. So to do that, I used a different type of jig. This one I think I can just hold up for the camera. And with this one, basically I used the original 2 track gauges that I used to lay the temporary track that was on plywood before the trestle went in. And by using those same gauges, I could very easily recreate that same curvature. The issue was making sure they were spaced correctly. So what I did was just basically take these same 2 track gauges, pop them in the old temporary track, and then trace those so that I was able to get the correct spacing on them. There's only room for about 8 or 9 bents on here, so each time I filled one up, I would just basically start over and pull it down and just continue around. But these radii were the same all the way through the curve, so that made that much easier because I didn't have to use different radii throughout it. It just kept the same one. I think it's a 38 and a 42 if I remember right. But worked out perfectly. So the trestle right now is just held in place on its own. It's not in there permanently because I've got to do all the scenery. So let me pull it out of there and I'll show you what I've done so far to support and fill in the area around it. So here's the trestle removed, and as you can see, it's completely self-supporting, and since it was built with Titebond wood glue, it's incredibly strong. But I was still concerned about damage since it is near the edge of the aisleway here. So to support it, I had to do several things in this area. The first thing was trying to get it set back from the aisle a little bit more than it was. The original plywood base was right at the lip where the pink foam is. And, you know, that was just entirely too close for people passing by. So I ended up robbing a little bit of space out of this passageway right here. And it's pretty wide already. It's about 4 feet. So basically I took about 4 inches and cut, if I can kind of get in here so you can see, there are some little 1x4 blocks that have 4 inches exposed out from under the plywood, and I used those to basically attach the fascia to. And that gave 4 inches of space between the edge of the bents and the aisleway. Still a little bit close for comfort, but when it's just me and the guys that operate, I'm really not too concerned about it because it's there's still plenty of room to walk through here without being right up against it, even if you're passing somebody. So I use different 2x4s and 1x4 blocks to support the fascia here. And while we're looking at the fascia, let me go around and I'll show you the other sides. Okay, this next part is probably going to be easier to show you with the phone off the tripod, so I'm going to try to keep it as steady as possible, but I apologize if it's a little shaky. So the fascia comes around and basically kept it low so that it covered, you can kind of see a support I put here, but where the bench work comes down, I didn't want that exposed. So the fascia goes low there to cover that, and then at this point it comes back up to match the bottom line of the rest of the fascia. But I'd mentioned on the last vlog that I wanted to have room here for a little bit of scenery, a depot, and maybe some other little details. So what I did here was just basically put in some plywood blocks from just some scrap, cut those so that they push the plywood out. And that gave me enough room here to add this depot. It'll be a, forget who makes it, but it's a C&O depot prototype. And this is a little food stand. I figure people coming in might like to grab a bite when they get off the train or they're waiting at the station. And the other thing I did here, you remember last time, the old fascia piece that was here came way down because I cut it long before I had built this scene, and all of that foam was exposed. So now it's actually covered by the fascia, and I can go back in and finish the scenery in this this little area here. But once this is painted black, it should really look nice. I wasn't too concerned about building this out because it's about a little over 5 feet wide in this part of the aisle. So, and normally that table's not here, by the way. That's been sort of my workstation while I've been building this trestle area. But that's going to add a lot to just bring that out maybe 3 inches. And come around on the other side here. Same idea. I kept it low to cover up the bench work, which supports everything you can see under there. And then as on the other side, once it gets past the bench work, then I just raised it up to match the lower edge of everything else. This area right here, I've already started roughing in a tunnel, the tunnel walls. I got these the other day. They're not permanently in. They're not painted or anything, but just to get an idea of what it would look like to have these walls. So these are flexible cut stone walls. Chooch makes these. They're super nice. They come with some adhesive backing that you can put on. So once I get a little further along, then I'll put the walls in, then I'll ballast, which is why I've kept this open right here, because I need to ballast before I enclose it. But this top area here is not going to be the cardboard strips. Basically, I'll just build up several layers of foam in this area and just carve it with the hot wire tool. There'll be basically a road that sort of comes across here, has a grade crossing, and then it'll sort of curve up as it goes uphill through here. There'll be a gas station and a garage, a boarding house, and a barbecue stand, Foscale barbecue stand that'll go right in here. But I'll be able to just basically, once the foam is carved, I'll just be able to take it out, take it to the workbench and build everything there, and then just put it in place and glue it down once it's finished, which will make that very easy. But again, that building this out a little bit, having scenery here will allow me to put probably another structure over what is the tunnel underneath it. And then it'll come out over here. And this goes into the coal mine scene. So this upper track will be hidden. There'll be another tunnel probably right in here, another tunnel portal. So this will all be hidden back this way. But this will just be a nice little rural community scene that actually ties into this town. This is the town of Latham. And this will be, I guess, Upper Latham up here. And then we'll take a look at how I built these hardshell supports. Okay, I'm going to keep the phone off the tripod a little bit longer, and so I can show you some of the details in here. So along the way, I'm going to pop some pictures on the screen just so you can see the different steps that I went through a little more clearly. But Basically, the first thing I did was take some 1x6 and built these little steps for the bench, just measured them individually, screwed them down or glued in some cases, and did that on both sides, as you can see here in this picture. And after that, I created some profile boards. I was concerned that because of the size and depth of this scene, the cardboard strips were just not going to be strong enough to support this much weight. So what I did behind here is create these what I call profile ribs out of pink foam insulation. So as you can see from the picture, I started out with just large rectangles and then used a hot wire tool and started to rough in the shape of those. As I picked my rubber rock castings, and by the way, the rubber rock castings will be the same company that made these. They're not going to be different ones, but they're that type of flexible rubber rock. When I picked the ones that I wanted, really based on the dimensions, then I started to carve areas to fit those. For example, there's one that's going to fit right in here. You can kind of see where there's a little ledge that'll be underneath it. There's another one that's going to fit right in here. There's one down at the base, and then there's two that kind of fill in these other spaces. That one's going to probably require a little bit of cutting and fitting to fill it as I would like. But basically, that's the idea. So once those profile boards were cut, then it was a matter of just coming in and filling in the area with the cardboard web. And really, everything you see here, including the fascia, has really been done in about the last 7 days. So really, it's almost all been trestle work up until this point. And once it was far enough along that it could stand on its own, then I could start coming in and building the rest of this. So this part of it really will go pretty quickly. The next step is to go ahead and cover this with plaster cloth, which I'll start on tomorrow. And once that plaster cloth is on, then I'll add the rock faces, fill in the in-between with Sculptamold, and then come in with the different scenery and materials, gravel, dirt, ground foam, whatever. Definitely some trees in this area, and start to create the finished effect. When it's all done, then I'll paint the fascia black to match the rest of it. But with plaster and things like that, it's going to end up getting repainted anyway. So I'll just hold off on that till the very last thing. So I'm going to put this back on the tripod, and we'll pop the trestle back in and take one final look. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this episode. And next time we get together, this whole entire area should be completely finished. This one should not be anywhere near 4 months before the next installment. Hopefully, maybe by the end of August, I should have this completely ready to go, including that other section around the corner that's going to be made from the foam. So until that time, thanks for taking the ride with me today. Hope you enjoyed your visit, and we'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.